All right, everybody. Thank you for joining me this week for the Tipple's Wine of the Week virtual wine tasting. This week, we're going to be enjoying the El Enemigo Malbec from Mendoza, Argentina. Beautiful, beautiful Malbec. Great name. It's just so much fun to say, right? If you have not already done so, now is the time to pop open that bottle and pour yourself a glass while I get started talking a bit more about the wine. Beautiful color. All right, so let's jump over here. All right, so here we have the El Enemigo Malbec. Some hefty ratings here. Robert Parker, 93, James Suckling, 92. Food pairings in this guy: skirt steak with balsamic soy glaze, lengua tacos with chimichurri sauce, duck cassoulet, mushroom and black bean chili on the vegetarian side. This is definitely a wine that can handle some spice with your protein or with your protein simulator, depending on if you're vegetarian. So it's really has some nice flexibility in what you can pair it with. So let's jump back over here. All right, so take a whiff and a sip. We'll begin talking about this guy. Herbs and spices jump right out on the nose, not just fruit, which I like. Black cherry on the fruit side, really dark fruits, and some nice berries as well, red and black. And a hint, almost unexpectedly, a hint of vanilla. This guy's 92% Malbec and 8% Cabernet Franc. So the Cabernet Franc helps lift the aromatics out of there and may add a bit more of herbal and floral notes. So that's the reason for that 8%. The Malbec will do the heavy lifting, especially from Mendoza. Alcohol content, 13.5%. So for a red, a nice, mid-level alcohol content, nothing over the top. Give that wine a good chew. Let it really coat the palate. Let's see here. I never did get that text. Okay. All right. So, nice tannins. Nice minerality on that guy. So, age worthiness on this guy. So we have some nice, we have kind of a nice amount of fruit, but there is a tartness to this fruit, a freshness. I wouldn't quite call it tartness, but a bit of a nice, fresh, rich fruit, but definitely on the not a dried fruit side. So there's definitely a tartness to it, a nice tannin to it. The alcohol is certainly not low. It's just in the medium level. So this guy is ready to drink now, but can spend some time in the bottle. This is a 2018. I could see it going for about 10 years. On the barrel aging side, that's why I said I was kind of surprised by the vanilla I'm getting on the nose, because it kind of it's set to be minimally oak influenced. It's aged in very large oak barrels called foeders, and they're almost neutral because you have a large amount of volume of wine to oak contact. Plus, they're used again and again here. So it would be a minimal oak influence, but I'm definitely getting a little bit of a vanilla hint. Not that I dislike it, but I was a little surprised at how much it jumps out of the glass. Nice baking spice. All right. So on the red side of fruits, plums, cherries. The plum is definitely kind of the classic as part of the Malbec portfolio, can also be part of the Merlot portfolio. But really nice fruit on here, but also I like the baking spices, a little bit of pepper. And I really like, when I'm going with the texture of the wine, I'm kind of thinking about the tannins and to an extent, a really nice minerality that I'm getting out of here. So it's not overwhelming with the fruit. It's really kind of a nice balance, almost a bit more of a Bordeaux styling, which does work with this grape. It's origin, which we'll talk about, but there's definitely like a minerality to this wine, kind of a granite graphite thing going on, which I really enjoy. So I find this to be not a common expression of Malbec from Argentina. It's a bit more French in styling. What are you guys thinking? So you've had it, and you guys like that idea? Okay, the hogsets are in with the description of a bit of a.
Sounds good. Sounds good.
All right, I like it. Robin and Chris.
So I totally agree on like this sort of like you can taste it. There's like a light oakiness to it. Like when you said that, I was like, oh yeah, it is kind of not totally unexpected, but like more than you would think. There is like a little bit of like, it's not dark chocolate, but it's like maybe like a little bit of cocoa or something else like that to it. That's really, really nice. We're pairing with a gorgonzola sauce steak and stuff like that, so it slightly influences my tasting right now. But like some dried herbs, some dark fruit, but I can't quite place it right now.
Right, I like it. Yeah, I like it. And like there's this herbal quality. There's some nice tannins on here. Not all Malbecs, especially from Argentina, will give you tannin, but with elevation and with a lot of sunlight, you tend to get more. So that would definitely lead into what we're going to talk about with where this wine comes from. So loving all that. Let us jump over to the label. All right, so the Enemigo, which I love this label. It's absolutely gorgeous and striking without being over the top, right? So we've got the name Malbec right there. So if you're looking for Malbec, you can find it easily. The vintage, it's from Mendoza. And on the back, they even, in case you don't know what the Enemigo means, the enemy, they give you a translation. Thank you very much. And then you basically get a quote. So it doesn't tell you much about the wine after that, but it does give you an insight into where the name comes from, which comes from the quote that they have here. At the end of the journey, we remember only one battle, the one we fought against ourselves, the original enemy, the one that defined us. So obviously a quote that means a lot to the winemakers, but then again, not telling you a lot more about the wine, right? But we have red wine, Mendoza, product of Argentina, produced and bottled by the wine group here, which I'm not going to worry about saying this name because the other name of who's actually behind this whole wine will be stated at the end. So produced and bottled by, so you have somebody who is making this wine and bottling it. They are in control of it. It's from Mendoza. When you have it, you don't have any of these subsections of Mendoza. Now, I know it's because it actually jumps through a couple of high-end locations in Mendoza, but you wouldn't necessarily know that. So I always like to kind of punch a couple of holes in the label and say, well, if you're in a store that's really going to help you, then they would explain to you, oh, well, don't worry. This comes from a couple of different locations, but they're all high-end. This is a really next level Malbec. That would be kind of the vacancy left that I would see when they put on the the statement on the back, which is about the name of the wine. In return, you're not getting as much information about why would this be a $30-ish Malbec rather than a $15 or $12 Malbec. So it doesn't get as much into that when it only gets to say Mendoza in general. So a little description of that might be helpful, but other than that, you know what? That's what the wine guys are there for. So why not? Got a couple of chats. Let me see what we have here. Tarragon, on the herbal side, I like the call. That's nice. Very good. You said age well for 10 years. It's 13 up on alcohol. It's not low for aging. It's just on the medium side. So it doesn't add to helping the aging, but it doesn't detract. It's not low enough to lower the ability to age. It's just not extra to increase the ability to age. So that's where I would say 13.5 lands on a red. All right, so Malbec. Malbec's origin is in the Bordeaux southwestern region of France, and in France it is often called Côte. It's now most famous in Argentinian production, but it originated as a blending grape in Bordeaux. It's kind of a do-everything grape. Adds some color, adds some alcohol, adds some nice fruit flavors. Does not generally, especially in France, add a lot of tannin. So it's kind of a nice mid-level boosting grape, but what they were able to create in Argentina was really a special expression of Malbec, which is, I think, why it's now not only dominated Argentina, but it kind of helped it to be craved throughout the world. It really gave it its own identity instead of just being a blending grape. Now, Cahors, France. All right, there is an area in France that works with Malbec specifically, but it's north of Bordeaux. I'll show you a map in a moment. It's cooler growth. It gives a different expression of Malbec, and that expression is a bit more like its parent grape, Cabernet Franc. It's lighter in color up there because of the lower ripening amount. Lighter in color, the herbs jump out more, the floral side jumps out more, and it changes. So in Argentina, you tend to get violets as the floral component. In Cahors, it's a bit more like roses. So it's and definitely has a lower amount of tannin up there as well. It's a lighter wine, almost comparable in food pairings to what you do with Pinot Noir. So it's a very different expression up in Cahors. But the predominant Malbec flavors, we have red plum, which we mentioned, blackberry, vanilla, which did come out, tobacco. I would go split up the herbs that we're all discussing into the tobacco and into the tobacco area, and it does have a famously chocolate finish, which I'm going to try again right now.
Well, I think based on the flavor profile and based on the stuff that we've said so far, it almost reminds me of like a bourbon in which a lot of times you get a little bit of vanilla, you get that smoky tobacco-ness out of it, you get a little cocoa out of it, like kind of you get that spiciness out of it. It kind of reminds me of something like that, like a nice slow sipping bourbon.
I agree with that, and I think so. Seeing tobacco on here, I originally was like, oh, it tastes smoky to me, and it's not in the like cigarette style smoky, but it smells like cigars to me. I think like
an unlit cigar.
Yes, an unlit cigar. Yes, like when you open up the cabinet and you're like
you open up the humidor and then you've got I like it. I like that description a lot. That's great. And you see, like on the alcohol, we are on the lower end for Malbec, right? So, but for the acid, we've got, they're saying medium low acidity. I'd say we're on the medium plus acidity. So this is a very specific expression of this acid, which does bring it to be a little bit more French in styling, a little more elegant is what we're getting. They can be really deep and dark and rich and chocolatey, but this is more of a food-oriented Malbec. that kind of pushes toward the Cab Franc ancestry of the grape. I think it's absolutely delicious, but I also think it pairs easier with food and for an enhancement rather than competing with your food than a lot of Malbecs on the market. All right, so where is this from, right? Bordeaux is the origin. And then Loire, up in the Loire Valley, this is where Cahors is. So north of Bordeaux, and I mentioned this before, but I wanted to give you guys a visual. This area, significantly north, is much cooler, and it gives that very different expression of Malbec in the Cahors area. Make sure I didn't miss anything. So, we talked about the different thing. So one of the things with Malbec is it does thrive. It loves intense sunlight, and that helps it to darken and thicken the skin. And that's where you get, with more intense sunlight, part of the things is what you want, not just the amount of sun, but if the higher elevations you go, you have more intense ultraviolet light. More intense ultraviolet light causes grapes to thicken the skin. And if you can get a combination where you have a long hang time, so you don't have early rains at the end of ripening, with a strong ultraviolet radiation, then you can get the best out of Malbec. And that happens to be perfect for Mendoza. So I can see when you look at that, why it became this alternative expression that wowed everybody when it was moved to kind of the area in the world that was made for it. All right, Malbec 1. So this talks about from cool to warm growth, the different expressions that you might see. So cooler climate. So we're talking about cherry to black cherry to raspberry, and then it darkens to plum and then blackberry as you go to the warmer climates. And it runs right along this spectrum here with the color. And that is where you get. So what we're getting is somewhere here, not quite in the middle, but certainly toward the middle from the warm side. A lot of Argentinian expression is certainly on the warmer side. And then Loire Valley would be here, Bordeaux right around here. Production in the world. So as I said, Argentina's taken over control basically of Malbec in the world. And you can see from this diagram, the dominance it has. Like the 3/4 of the Malbec in the world is now grown in Argentina. Then France, where they still use it on a very regular basis for blending in Bordeaux, and then single varietals up in Cahors. Then there's the United States and South Africa, but the dominant here is Argentina has really claimed this grape as their own. And honestly, to their credit, I think brought out the best in the grape. All right, so we have Foudres. All right, I talked about that this is aged in something, in a vessel meant to affect the wine with the oak, but minimally. So it's supposed to be a gentle oaking. And so you have a lot of volume of wine to the contact points with the oak. So it's Foudres, which basically just means really, really big barrels. But I wanted to give some, some perspective on there. So we have some here. They can come in different sizes. There is no specific amount of gallons in a Foudre, because here you have some that have been repurposed into a into a hotel rooms. So, but I thought that was really cool to look at. I want to stay there. I bet it smells amazing.
Stay there.
I love this.
Right. All right. So the grape, what we're looking at is variability in the thickness of the skin and the intensity of the peripheral zone, depending on how warm and how much sun is interacting and how intense that sun is. But for our purposes here in Mendoza, we're dealing with a thickened skin and a more intense effect on that grape. In fact, one of the things with Malbec is if you allow it to go too bright, too warm, too long, without any cooling, you will lose the acid in the middle, which we have not lost in this grape. So what preserves that acid? What preserves that acid is rapid cooling at night to stop the ripening of the grapes. So you want all that intensity to affect the grape during the day, and then you want it to stop so that you can leave it with a longer hang time to gain character on the vine without over ripening. And once again, that plays into why Mendoza does such an incredible job with Malbec. So where in the world are we? Let me move some things around here. All right, we're down here in the southern growing latitude, right in the middle. And South America's growing regions, largely Chilean and Argentinian. We got a little bit going on in southern Brazil and Uruguay. We've had some Uruguayan wines. They are definitely coming along nicely, but Argentina and Chile definitely own the category for South America right now. And right kind of within the middle, when you divide it all up, we have Mendoza, right along the Andes Mountains. So when we look at Mendoza along the Andes and we talk about what I was saying, which is cool, rapid cooling, well, you're inland. This area is basically a desert. It's 2,000 to 3,000 feet above sea level, and it cools rapidly. So the growing temperatures during the day hit into the upper 90s, mid 90s, and it quickly cools down into the 60s. So you're talking about a 30-degree swing in temperature to get the grapes to quickly stop ripening during the night. Now, the other thing that's interesting about Mendoza is it's a desert, right? So it does not have a lot of insects. It doesn't have a lot of humidity, almost at all. So it makes it very easy for them to become organic. Organic sustainability, all these things come pretty easily in Mendoza because there's not a lot of infection. There's not a lot of mold. There's not a lot of insects. There's also not a lot of water raining, almost none, but there is plenty of water because of the snow melt coming off of the mountains coming into these rivers. And then in this case, whereas in France, they do not irrigate their grapes, in Argentina, they have to irrigate or there would be no grapes because of the desert, right? So they do irrigate, but it really is easy to remain sustainable because there's so much water coming off of the Andes snowmelt. Now, what we're drinking tonight is basically from areas of the Tupungato. So this area that is split between a couple of different locations. Yep, here we go. And here we are in Mendoza. So let's see here. I want to make sure I didn't miss this. Temperatures. All right. So here we have the Andes. You can see, the incredible wineries, just gorgeous views. I really want to go to Mendoza. The Mendoza soil is alluvial deposits. What does that mean? It's deposited by the rivers. It's a combination of sand, clay, and pebbles. Low in organic material, but high in minerality, which is time and again what we see is optimal for wine grape growing. So you get character coming out without having the grapes be flabby, and with that lower organic material, the grapes struggle and produce the best grapes they can because they feel they need to reproduce with those grapes in order to continue their line. So here's some examples of irrigation, couple of different options, but this is kind of the most fun to look at. The other option is they will string along metal tubing between those between these posts. These are not grapevines. These are posts. The grapevine is here. They will string along tubing along here and then drip irrigate as well. This is more like what they would do during the winter time, which you can see it is, to really flood those grapes and give them a good drink before they produce in the spring. All right, El Enemigo wines. So here you are, you can see here they are down in the, that Tupungato Valley area. looking up at the Andes, working with some sustainability. The chickens, they can run around and eat up those eggs, those bugs, eggs and bugs, eat up the bugs. But so one of the fun things about Mendoza, time and time again, is that we're about to talk about a winery that you guys are very familiar with me, which is El Enemigo Winery, is a project of Catena. In Mendoza, all roads lead back to Catena. But we're not talking about a project by Laura Catena this time. This time, this is a project of Adriana. Adriana is the youngest daughter of Nicholas Catena. So it is a project of Catena. It's worked in there. This is Adriana, much like Laura Catena, who is the head of Catena itself, is a medical doctor. And she actually does practice in San Francisco in addition to running the company. Adriana has a PhD in history from Oxford. So she's a historian who also has grown up in the industry her entire life and runs several projects on her own, in addition to working with the family main business of Catena. So Adriana has run this project with Alejandro Vigil. All right, so Alejandro is the head winemaker for Catena. So this was an area and a style of wine that they both agreed they wanted to work with and excited them. So they created this spin-off of the El Enemigo. Interesting thing about Alejandro left school, formal education, at the age of 14 temporarily to begin working in the wine industry. He studied at night to, quote, make his mother happy. But in the end, he ended up graduating top in his class in agricultural engineering. But Alejandro has been the chief winemaker for Bodegas Catena Zapata since 2002. He is the winemaker who received the first 100-point score awarded to any South American wine, and that was for Catena Zapata. And then after that, where are we? South American wine. And then the highest rating ever given to a pure Cabernet Franc comes from this project. So the highest rating ever for South America, actually the highest rating ever given to a pure Cabernet Franc comes from the Enemigo line, which is the Gran Enemigo, which is something else that may be in the store. It also reached up to 98 points, I believe it was recently. He also holds the first 100-point score for an Argentinian Chardonnay. So Alejandro knows his stuff, clearly. I mean, this guy is killing it. So he is the one. This is basically a separate wine project and a separate, slightly different change on the style that he wanted to express in the El Enemigo. All right. So that being most of the show, I'm going to stop and see if you guys have any comments. Julie, how you guys like it?
I was just saying that I really like that it's not my bigness that I love, but the balance between the flavor that is there and the level of tannins is perfect. I was like, I would serve this to anybody and I would still like it. Whereas usually when I say like, oh, this is a wine I would serve to anybody, I'm compromising. The bigness, boldness that I love. But I love this. Like I would happily serve this to everybody. I feel like it's a people pleaser. But I also really enjoy the flavor.
Oh, good. Yeah. And I like that you're talking about the balance. That's the thing. That's what makes me think of Bordeaux, right? Mm-hmm. Bordeaux is that's that thing that they look for is it's a balance. You've got this thing where you say, okay, fruit, acid, tannin, spice from the barrel, all right in line as this beautiful balance that works with food. And it makes it flexible. It makes it delicious. It makes it easy to like.
Right.
And appreciate.
Yeah, like it's fruity, but not sweet. Because if it's too sweet, then I'm not going to love it. It's like good tannins, but not like mouth puckering. And then like the flavor is there, but it's not like, I don't know if anybody else, Brian actually asked me this. I said, I love like the flavor is like crisp and good, but he goes, is it changing for you? And it hasn't changed for me, but we haven't had ours open very long. And so I didn't know if this was one that would change. Cause it's like, it's not that there's no tannins. There
Mhm.
are tannins, but it's not that big, bold.
Yeah, I've
So-
noticed now that mine's been open for about an hour, the tannins are a little more prominent.
Okay. Yeah, we should.
At first,
slow down.
I was talking about, minimal, like, modest tannins, and it keeps getting bolder and bolder and bolder as it takes a breath.
Yeah, and obviously we were late, so ours has only been open 20 minutes, if that. So I should drink it slower so I can let it build to that.
There you go. It'll get there.
Yeah, this is another very drinkable wine like last week. A lot of the Malbecs have kind of a sharp edge on them when they open them up. And this one is obviously, like you say, kind of a Bordeaux quality. But you could drink the whole bottle down with no trouble. At least I could. I thought it was very good.
No, excellent. Thank you.
And it went very well with hot curried chicken with cream sauce.
Oh, nice. All right. I'll take it. Yeah, Malbecs can definitely handle some spice, which I like, and complement it. And yet they won't trounce all over the protein, right? They won't stomp on it and cover it up. So excellent. Any other thoughts before I run over to thank our sources?
Yeah, I think my first sip or two of this, I was a little hesitant. I think it not only opened up over time, but also opens up in the glass really, really well. And ends up being just like a really nice balanced Malbec. I already love Malbec. I already love South American wine. So this was like catering to me already, but like, yeah, I really like how this is just sort of, and like you said, like I think it really complements food nicely, which I think is slightly unusual for Malbec, which I think is usually just sort of like a good, just standalone solid wine. You're like, I don't know, I can open up a Malbec right now.
Right.
And this actually does stand up and complement food really well.
Which my only thing for like related to that and related to you all saying like, oh, it's evolved, it's changed. For me, I don't feel like it's changed that much, but also kind of going through having it with food and now finishing dinner and having it, the like spice or pepper of having it with food then kind of evolves into having it by itself. So it's hard to tell what is the wine and what is just food or what is by itself. So.
Right. Yeah, but the food interaction side of it.
Yeah.
Yeah, which this guy is definitely, that's another part of that Bordeaux, balance and food pairing, right? Or it's going to react really well with your food and it's going to change. Which I do love that, when you say, oh, here's a bite of my food. Here's a bite of my food with my wine, and it changes it and makes it beautiful and brings out different aspects. I do love that in wine. That's one of my favorite parts. Well, all righty.
Did anybody combine this with something spicy?
Let's see.
The curry, you said you had curry.
Yeah,
Yeah, I feel like that would really bring the spice out in it too. I feel like I would really like that.
yeah, worked quite well.
Yeah, I could definitely say this could work with herby, you can work with spicy, but definitely you can go with like kind of strongly flavored, savory protein or protein alternatives on this guy, whether it's mushrooms and that kind of thing too, lentils.
I did a blue cheese bacon burger and it was fantastic.
You're just teasing me again. You did that.
Right? I was like, that was just mean. I just ate homemade tacos.
Because he knows. Oh, by the way, I meant to mention, I was going to say this during the part where I was talking about the label, right? When I go through my label review. Did any of you guys notice that their choice on the foil was that the foil was just foil colored on the inside, except for on the very top, it was pink, kind of a pinky purpley at the top. So I popped mine open and I took the foil off, right, first. And I saw that and I thought, oh crap, I've got a bad cork that allowed wine to get through. And then I looked and my cork was pristine and it didn't have any wine on top. And I thought, why would you do that? Like, honestly, I don't understand what the point was of that, because I don't see the positive. All I see is the negative of you wondering for a second, did I get a leaking cork that would make this pink? I don't know, because they paid extra. Like, why is that pink and everything else is silver? I don't know. Anyway, if I were to throw something else out there other than what I said before,
Yeah.
I don't get that choice, because I immediately went to, oh crap, I have a bad cork. And it wasn't a bad cork. It just has pink on the bottom of the foil on the very top. So I don't know.
That's just a girl power move for the youngest sister of like, I'll make a pink foil lid.
Right.
Celebration.
That makes me,
It is November.
makes me question, Jeff, what Paul said he had for dinner. If you're gonna eat like a good like fattier cut of meat with like the good like grease flavor, like deliciousness, do you want something a little bit? I don't want to say that this is mild by any means, but in comparison to like a big cab or something, I would say it's mild. What do you want to go with like a good solid like meal like that?
Yeah, with something like that, you want a bigger thing. You want like a cab, or you want a Shiraz, something big, bold, and with lots of tannin. So yeah, that is what you want. So for
So
this,
big
I would
with
go
big.
more.
You want big with big.
Right, big with big. Right, and so with this, I would go more like a lower fat cut of steak. So filet mignon would be amazing with this.
Right.
Right.
We did a skirt steak with chimichurri sauce.
There you go.
Yeah.
Hey, wait, who
Once we
suggested that?
started eating, the wine tasted a lot better than it did.
Oh, well, there you go. So it worked beautifully.
Yeah. Huh.
What do you guys,
We did
what do you
strips.
guys do for the vegetarian?
Mushrooms with a chimichurri sauce.
All right, there we go. And did it work well with that too?
Yes.
Yeah. All right, excellent. Good. Glad to hear it.
Stout had some spice too.
Mhm.
Hey,
Very-
Jeff,
Yeah.
so you said something a minute ago that now for wine education, should I start looking at my foil now when I cut it?
No, foil is not normally an indicator. I had actually tossed it aside, and then I happened to notice. Normally, I don't even look at the foil. I'm looking at the cork. And so the foil is what fooled me when I went to throw it away. And I took a new look at my cork just to make sure. So normally, no, looking at the foil is not normally a problem. It's not normally something you need to worry about. So good question, since I brought it up, but yeah. Yeah, I was like, why did you do that? Because it took, gave me a moment's pause. So. All right. So.
I have one of those gadgets that takes the top off of takes it off the cork.
Mhm.
I didn't notice it being pink, so now I'm gonna go dig through the trash and find it.
Yeah, I mean, either way, mine was, so, and I looked at it, I made sure, and I thought, it's foil, that couldn't be permeated by color, that makes no sense. No, it is just pink foil, so, all right, fair enough. All right, so the ratings on this guy, so, you guys have heard me say this many times. Wine that is well made and good and is a good representation of the area tends to get an 88 plus, right, within the industry. That doesn't mean that lines up exactly with what they're describing here, but that is the reality, right? And so you have this guy at a 92, 93 points, which would be at the outstanding level. So you say, all right, this is outstanding. It has something original to say to me, and it is a well-made version and well-grown grapes within it. So did it grab your attention? Did it tell you something a little extra versus other Malbecs? Or there's also taking into account, because we're here to work with from the beginning to end with your wine journey, right? Did you just enjoy the wine? Did it make you happy? After we've discussed it and you've had it with a little food or thought about the food, did that click with you and say, oh, I get how that would be worked? So with all that in mind, what are you guys thinking for your scores for this guy? And I just threw something on the floor. Hold on one second. Right, there we go. I tossed the foil aside and it landed in the dog's water, and I didn't want it to stay there. So fair enough. Let's see what we have here. All right, so all right, so we have Chris is going with a 91. Paul Foxafort is 90 and a half. Julie's a solid 91 and agrees. Brian agrees with a 91. I love it. Makes him happy. Would be good in a glass or a solo cup. Okay. So the Laura, Linda, Brenda, John group is averaging out to around an 88. All right. Linda is a 90. The Hogsets, 90 to 91. Harriet, 91, 92. We'll give you guys an average of a 91. All right. I like it. All right. So we're talking about right around the 90s, right? So beautiful wine, well made. That's the thing. They throw around the word outstanding a little early in the wine game, because I'm going to tell you at the top of very good is a very good wine, and there's nothing wrong with that. I think it's got special qualities. I think it's well made. I can think of a lot of ways I want to pair this wine with food, and I am enjoying it. I think that puts it right up in that 90 category very easily. So given all that thrown in there, I'd throw my hat in the ring at a good, easy 91. And if I had it with food, a proper pairing, I might have gone higher, which may be where the other ratings come from. I get why they did it, because I do really appreciate, and does it deserve bonus points for it? I could go there. I really appreciate the Bordeaux styling on this. I think that's pretty cool. So, all right. Thank you, everybody. Let's thank our sources. Get people's faces out of the way. Winefolly.com, always an amazing resource. 750.com, Wikipedia, wine.com, Acom Design, that was one of the pictures, that was the photo. Booking.com was the other photo. And El Enemigo Winery itself. And thank you, to the Catena family for making great wines and having a lot of fantastic projects. In between getting PhDs and doing all these other amazing things. They're impressive. Next week, we are going to France. Pinot Noir. Somebody mentioned to me that I seem to not be hitting Pinot Noirs as often as some of the other popular reds, and that's fair enough. So what is going on here? It didn't take. I have no idea why that didn't take. All right. We are going to Burgundy. We are drinking a French. It is from the Bourgogne region in Burgundy. Burgundian Rouge is Pinot Noir. I have no idea how everything I did not take on that last slide, but anyway, it's going to be, it's delicious. It's spicy. You're going to get a real taste for Burgundian flair as it comes to Pinot Noir. And I really hope you guys will jump back and come with us on to explore Bourgogne in Burgundy. So yeah, I'm throwing off a little bit there. That's not making sense to me, but that's all right. So everyone, thank you so much for joining me, and we will see you next week. Oh, there it is. Well, this is fun. It changed some things. Stop recording. There it is.